So our first speaker of the night is Sara. And Sara actually has a twin sister who's in the audience tonight. So see if you can find her in the crowd. Yeah, where's Waldo, exactly. She has been scuba diving with sharks, and she's a super recognizer, so she rarely forgets a face that she's met. Sara, come on up and share your fuck up.
All right, thank you for that. All right, so who here has ever fucked up their parents' retirement plans? Let's start with that then. So I'm a third generation chartered accountant. Oh, wait, I already fucked up. One sec. And I grew up surrounded by lots of accountants, so no surprise, by the time I was 15, I also decided I wanted to become an accountant, which I did. I worked for a couple years at a firm and then decided to go work for my father's accounting firm. And on my very first day of work, I remember thinking that this would be my last first day of work ever because I would never go and quit working for my father. So I committed then this would be the last job I would ever have. I'd be doing this job for the next 40 years. And generally it went fine. I was being groomed to take over the firm one day. After enough years, I became a partner. We advertised a lot on the radio. If you listen to 680 News, you'll recognize, is the CRA calling you? Those ads, that's us. Have you filed your taxes? And people turn their radio off getting scared hearing us, thinking we know. Anyways, since we advertised a lot on the radio, it took a lot of airtime saying our 10-digit phone number every time. So I thought it was a great idea to scoop up the phone number for pound tax when pound phone numbers came out. So you can type pound TAX. And that did not go so great because there was a time lag every time someone hit a button, and the receptionist was just fielding dozens of calls every day for people looking for taxis. As time went on, eventually I had 2 kids, and of course, they were both planned very meticulously around tax season because God forbid I had morning sickness or had to be on maternity leave during tax season. And everything was fine, the years went on, and once my kids were little and working a lot of hours, I started to get anxiety, but I didn't know that it was anxiety, so I just kind of trudged along dealing with it. And I kept going that way until COVID hit. And at that point, lockdown started in March 2020, so I'm working already 1 million hours a day, and now taking my firm remote and watching a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. And I just kept drowning more and more every day, having to have my employees review files at 10:30 at night, kept hoping and praying that lockdown would end so I could stop drowning and get out from under this. And this is really where my next fuck up occurred because I did not know what burnout was. I thought burnout was a saying to say I'm so burned out. I didn't know burnout was an actual mental, physical condition you can have. So I just kept trudging along, and I now know you cannot outwork burnout. You actually have to make a change in your life, or you'll just get sick. You just can't keep going, even though I tried to keep going. And I was just tired all the time. I couldn't retain information, sleeping, I was becoming a zombie. And it took me doing daily quizzes on Google of am I depressed, and every result saying severely depressed, to finally just acknowledge that, yeah, I was not okay and had to make a change. I reluctantly took 3 months off of work, which was a huge deal. I took 3 months maternity leave, so to leave for anything else, that's crazy. But I did, and at the end of the 3 months, I still could not bring myself to go back to accounting. My brain just didn't want to do it anymore. The best way to describe it is that the room in my brain that's accounting, if you open that door, that room had a fire, and now it's just char, and I couldn't do it anymore. So I ended up having to call my father and say, thanks for spending the last decade training me to be your successor, but I can't take over your firm anymore. You're going to have to find someone else. I can't even do accounting. I need to do something else with my life. And to no one's surprise, this set off a massive identity crisis because I had spent my whole life becoming an accountant as I planned, and now did not know what to do because the one thing that I knew how to do, I couldn't do. And I didn't think there was anything else in the world that I could be hired for. I felt completely unemployable. And that was when I realized I had to start a business. Looking back, it's no surprise I decided to start something in toys because I was home for so many months locked up with my 1-year-old and my 3-year-old. The business is called Barumba Play, and it was really simple. It was, my kids' foam blocks are fun. They would be more fun if they were huge. And then we could build forts and tunnels and do cool things with them. Later, it morphed into this, to making it a couch too. So that was the idea. I had never started a business before, but fortunately, as an accountant, I had hundreds of clients who had. So I called one client up and I asked, how do you make a product? And then I called another client up and I asked, how do you import a product? And I basically made enough phone calls to finally bring my product to life and get it going. But it was not all smooth sailing. I don't know if I'm blocking this or not. But there was lots of mistakes along the way, since I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea how the whole freight shipping industry worked and that there was specific trucks that you could get to move your goods from A to B. And the only truck I knew was a moving truck. So I kept hiring moving trucks to move goods from my manufacturer to my warehouse at double the cost. I also accidentally, on my very first order, like 200 people ordered navy, and then I started to get the emails that their walls and carpets were turning blue. Yeah, color transfer, like when you buy jeans, that was an issue. And then even more recently during the Canada Post strike, that was a pain to try and figure out how to get everything shipped, but I accidentally had 100 play couches delivered to one of those local small UPS stores instead of one of the big drop-off centers and had to take over the UPS. Like we moved the island and we filled a UPS store with 100 play couches. Give me one sec. All right, I have a question now for the audience. Has anyone here ever gone viral? Was it, okay, well, none of you said yes, so let's just pretend someone said yes. Was it because the internet thought you were selling a sex couch? Because what was happening during this time was the explosion of TikTok. And for those of you who are not on TikTok, in 2021, there was a trend going around about being a TikTok accountant. Yeah, so for those of you who were not, a TikTok accountant is like a stripper, sex worker kind of thing. It was a way to get around the algorithm and say you're an accountant. So I am naively posting my story on TikTok about how I used to be an accountant, and now I am selling a play couch. And everyone assumed that meant I used to be a stripper, and now I sell a sex couch. And every video went super viral, like hundreds of thousands of views and like thousands of comments and likes, to the point that I eventually had to make this explanation video to say it is not a sex couch, it's a children's toy. And in case you can't see, that's 23,000 likes on that video alone. But unlike this fuck up, which was funny, my next fuck up was not quite so funny. Yeah, no one likes getting government mail, brown CRA. In this case, it was CBSA government mail. But before I tell you what's in the envelope, I need to give you a little backstory with this other story. When I started making my product, I made it in China the first year. And the import people decided it was a toy, not furniture, which has no duties, no tariffs. That's perfect, great. I don't need to pay anything. Then I started to manufacture in Canada, but I still had to import the fabric component. And being the accountant researcher I am, I did my homework, and I realized they might still consider it a toy, because you're putting it into the final manufactured good, but they might consider it fabric, which has 18% duties. So I brought it to the attention of the people who helped me import the item, and I asked for something called a ruling, which is basically just getting it in writing so you're good, because I did not want anything to come back to bite me. I wanted to be certain that everything was good and I wouldn't get stuck owing any money later. And that was when I fucked up for the biggest time, because I trusted their email that it was filed and okay, and I never thought to ask for a copy. So back to the envelope. I get a letter that I am being audited. And I wasn't concerned because I knew I had this ruling filed saying that, yeah, it's a toy. Turns out no ruling was ever filed. So I spoke to a bunch of lawyers and customs experts, and they pretty much all told me, like, you're fine, you did do the correct classification, you just need to appeal the decision. I go online to appeal, and I find out that our lovely government, when you appeal, you actually have to pay the disputed amount first. So they wanted me to pay $80,000 now, but it says we're actually really, really behind, that the soonest we can assign anybody to look at your case is 423 days. So, like, as a small business, I don't want to pay $80,000 and then you'll sit on my money for over a year. And then on top of that, I'd have to hire a lawyer to fight to get my money back. And I mean, $80,000, it's not like $1 million, but it's not nothing. And all of a sudden, if you're paying a lawyer 20, 30 grand, you're like, okay, I'm gonna spend the next couple years fighting to try and end up with my 50K back. Like, it didn't really feel worth it. And this is where I had to make the biggest business decision so far of, do I pay and do I spend the next couple years stressing and fighting over this? Or what's the consequence if I don't appeal and don't pay? So at the end of the day, I decided I'm not appealing and I'm not paying because Barumba Play was never my identity. Unlike accounting, I purposely kept myself detached from the company. It was really a way to get out of depression and have something else to do with my life, but I was never the company. It was never really part of me. And it's also interesting because I was able to reflect now how 5 years ago when I left accounting, I felt like there was nothing in this world I could do. I was unemployable. And now, after starting a business and knowing how to solve problems and figure things out, I realized I could actually kind of do anything. And I knew I'd be okay even without Barumba. So what is next for me? I mean, on one hand, I can't really end this fuck up on a happy note because it's sort of still an ongoing matter. We'll see, time will tell. But my inventory will either be sold off or I'll be selling the business. But what I will be doing is I actually am so fortunate to have the opportunity to fuck up another family member's business because I'm joining my brother's company, Jasper Air Purifiers, and moving to Austin, Texas in March as his new CRO. So that's what I'm doing. And the last thing I'll say, and just leave you with this, is that out of all of this, the one way I can kind of wrap this up with a tidy bow is that I have found that entrepreneurship is really just a journey of self-discovery disguised as running a business. And I'm so grateful in the end that all of this happened to me because I would have spent 40 years with my office as my prison cell, never doing anything interesting. And in the end, now I've done like cool stuff and met interesting people, and now I'm moving to Texas, and it's opened up this whole other life and world for me that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't got burned out. And that's my fuck-up story.
Oh, wait, stay up for Q&A. Sara, that was amazing. And wouldn't a natural pivot be to try out the sex couch business? You have the viral video, it could happen. Thank you so much, fantastic lessons, and I'm so excited for your next journey, and I'm excited to buy one of your couches for my son. When he turns 18. All right, we're gonna open it up for some Q&A. Please keep the question itself brief so we can get through as many as possible. Really excited to see what you all ask, and I'll hand this back to Sara.